Fantastic. So I'm Gordon Smith. My day job is as a neurologist at the University of Utah, and my night job is as Education Committee Chair for the American Academy of Neurology. And so for the next 15 minutes, what I wanted to talk to you all about is the ABCs of maintenance of certification. This isn't going to be a deep dive into the criteria for MOC, but it's meant to be more of an overview why we have MOC, who you can blame for having MOC, who the stakeholders are. And I think this is really helpful because it helps you make decisions in terms of interacting with the system. So it used to be doing MOC sessions was like The Walking Dead, where people would be coming at you with pitchforks and so forth, and the situation has calmed down, yet MOC is really about as confusing as the Game of Thrones, which I can never keep track whose house who is in and so forth. And so this is a fantastic image of lifelong learning and the various stakeholders in lifelong learning as a physician. And it's bewildering, and you can see that with each step, pre-medical school all the way up through the practicing neurologist, there are all of these different stakeholders that are pulling at you and pushing at you. And this includes the AAMC, the State Federation of Medical Boards, specialty boards like the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, American Board of Medical Specialties, all of these different things. And so the context is particularly baffling. And this isn't ideal, and clearly as a system we need to try and improve this so it's somewhat understandable and makes sense. But what I'd like to do is we're not going to do that today, but what I'd like to do is explain the various stakeholders that impact us here in practice, really in reference to our specialty boards and maintenance of certification. And I think going from the beginning, it's important to understand why we have this and who the stakeholders are in it. And ultimately, the first stakeholder is the public. And this is something I really didn't understand until recently. I thought that the boards were there to serve me, but they're really not. If you think about it, all of us here, most of us flew in on an airplane, and the pilot of the airplane not only had to go to pilot school, but they have to maintain their qualifications as a pilot and do drug testing and these various sorts of things to demonstrate their competence and their lifelong learning as a pilot, learn how the new jets work and how to get us all off in case there's a problem. And I think we're all comfortable with that and pretty excited about it. And the public has a similar sort of view of us as medical professionals, that we need to demonstrate our competence and our lifelong learning. And so going into MOC, it's really important to recognize that the stakeholder, the primary stakeholder in MOC, is really the public. Now, we're comfortable with this in one aspect of our life, and that's our medical license, right? All of us have a medical license to practice in one or multiple states, and our state licensing board oversees that. And so we not only have to have gone to medical school and completed our internship, but we have to fulfill CME and increasingly maintenance of licensure issues, right? And the state medical boards, I think all of us recognize, exist to serve the public. And demonstrating that as a physician, we went to medical school and we're keeping up on the various things that we're keeping up on, right? And I'll get to MOL in a second. Does anyone know who the first medical specialty to have a board was? Anyone know? Who's the edge? Do you know? No. So it was ophthalmology. And so it's interesting. About 100 years ago, there were lots of interests in medicine, very similar to today, a demand for accountability, a demand for value and quality and care. And you can imagine 100 years ago, it was the Wild West. There was no regulation whatsoever. I could hang up my shingle as a neurologist, and there was no guarantee that I was even a physician, right? And so the first group to really pull this together were these guys, and this is the American Academy of Ophthalmology in 1916. And so the American Board of Ophthalmology was the first specialty board in the United States, and they made the decision that they were going to set the criteria to demonstrate excellence in lifelong learning in ophthalmology. And over the next couple of decades, in the early 20th century, there was formation of ultimately 24 specialty boards, one of which is the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. And these boards existed to do the same thing for physicians that is being done for pilots and policemen and every other specialist that contacts the public, which is to demonstrate competence and lifelong learning, right? And these organizations, as is the case with the medical boards, are public-facing, right? So it took me a long time to realize that the ABPN which I really respect, doesn't exist for me. I thought they did initially, but they exist to demonstrate to the public that I actually went to medical school and I did a neurology residency and my neuromuscular fellowship, and then I'm keeping up on my lifelong learning. Now these aren't fully independent entities. So all of these boards report essentially to the American Board of Medical Specialties, the ABMS, which is led by a neurologist, which I think is good for us. The ABMS creates the rules, and MOC is something that was derived from the ABMS, derived by the ABMS. So if you want to write a letter to someone about your feelings about MOC, it should be a polite letter, but send it to Lois Nora at the ABMS, because they're the ones who came up with the idea of MOC. Now they set forth what the requirements are, generally speaking, but each board creates its own programs to meet those requirements. And the requirements are quite different between the different boards. They're tailored to the specific specialties. So the surgical board's efforts to fulfill MOC requirements are different than those for neurologists. ABMS comes up with MOC, defines the rules. Those rules evolve over time. And then the specialty boards, the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, are responsible for making the specific rules for us as a field, and that's how we as neurologists intersect with it, right? And so those are very key public-facing stakeholders. So what about the American Academy of Neurology? Where does the AAN exist in this? The AAN, of course, is not a public-facing organization first and foremost. It's there to serve us, its members, and as you're all aware, the vision of the AAN is to be indispensable to its members, you and I, and its mission is to support the best patient-centered neurologic care. And and anyone else want to tell me what's the second part of the mission? Someone knows it? So to enhance career satisfaction for our members, right? And so the AAN has nothing to do with MOC except to support us in our efforts to fulfill the criteria and to maximize patient care, right? And so the AAN has done a number of things to do this. We have a variety of different programs that will help you fulfill the various MOC requirements. But the other thing that the Academy has done, which I think is really fantastic, is it's engaging with the ABPN and the ABMS in this, right? And so most people are aware of the fact that the AAN a year ago requested from the ABPN that they eliminate or put a hold on Part 4 of maintenance of certification, right? And of course, the ABPN is unable to do that because MOC is mandated by the ABMS. But what's happened is that the AAN and the ABPN are engaged in a dialogue, and the ABPN has reached out to leaders in the Academy to understand our members' needs, and there's an evolution. I think that's very productive. So if you want to learn more about that and what the specific requirements are for maintenance of certification, how they're evolving, and what the AAN is doing to help support your efforts to fulfill those criteria, there's an iTalk on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Clay Goodman, who's here, is a neurologist, and he is also on the board for the ABPN and is going to be talking about the ABPN and their programs, and I'll be there to talk about the AAN MOC products. And so if you want more information, come there. And the ABPN has a booth here at the meeting and representatives, and they also can ask your questions. So with that, I thank you for not bringing your pitchforks, and if you want the Game of Thrones slide about the lifelong learning stakeholders, I'm happy to give that to you. It'll take you a couple hours to get through it. And I think there's probably time for questions if you like. And Clay can answer all of them.